In the heart of London, among the towering office buildings and buzzing crowds, stood a company known as Skytech Innovations. At the helm of this corporate giant was Anthony "Tony" Carson, a respected figure in the business world. Having built Skytech from scratch, Tony was lauded as one of the most influential CEOs in the tech industry. He was an intelligent, charismatic man in his early 50s, a former engineer turned business mogul. Although his company was successful, a nagging feeling had plagued Tony for months, gnawing at his usual confidence and pride. One late afternoon, Tony stood alone in his corner office, staring at the sprawling cityscape through the large glass windows. Skytech had recently celebrated a major milestone, the acquisition of one of its largest competitors, and the boardroom had been filled with cheers and congratulatory toasts. But in that moment of solitude, Tony felt an odd emptiness. Despite Skytech's achievements, something felt off beneath the surface. Tony's assistant, Emma, broke his reverie, her voice soft yet professional. "Mr. Carson, your 5 p.m. meeting with the Human Resources team is ready. They're waiting for you in conference room B." "Thank you, Emma," Tony replied, grabbing his notebook and straightening his tie. As he walked down the long corridor, he couldn't shake the sense that he was about to uncover something deeply unsettling about his own company. The HR team consisted of Evelyn Patel, the head of Human Resources, and Connor Lewis, the chief operating officer. Both awaited him with expressions that bordered on concern. After Tony took his seat, Evelyn spoke up, her voice laced with hesitation. "Tony, thank you for meeting with us on such short notice. I'll get right to the point. We've just completed the latest employee satisfaction survey, and, well, the results aren't what we expected." Tony's eyebrows knit together. "Not what we expected? Evelyn, what do you mean?" Evelyn cleared her throat and handed him a report. "Employee satisfaction has dropped significantly since last year. In particular, employees have expressed concerns about work-life balance, feelings of undervaluation, and most concerningly, a lack of trust in upper management." Tony's face clouded as he flipped through the pages. "Are these issues new?" Connor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Not exactly, Tony. These issues have been creeping up over the past couple of years, but it seems they've reached a boiling point." Evelyn added, "We're also seeing feedback about a toxic workplace culture. Employees feel there's favoritism, lack of recognition for their efforts, and little opportunity for growth. Some even feel invisible." Tony's gaze was distant, his mind racing. How had this culture taken root under his leadership without his knowledge? "What do you suggest we do?" he asked, his tone sharper than intended. Connor leaned forward. "Maybe we start with some team-building activities and perhaps revise our benefits package." Tony shook his head. "That's just surface-level work, Connor. I need to get to the root of this problem. If people feel invisible and undervalued, this goes beyond benefits and team exercises." He set the report down with a sense of finality. "This is something I need to see for myself." Evelyn's eyes widened slightly. "Tony, what are you suggesting?" Tony took a deep breath, the weight of his decision growing heavier by the second. "My grandfather used to tell me, 'You'll never know a man until you've walked a mile in his shoes.' Maybe it's time I took that literally. I want to see what life is like for our employees from the ground up." Connor's face paled as he realized the implications. "Tony, are you saying—" "Yes," Tony replied firmly. "I'm going undercover as an entry-level employee, specifically as a night cleaner." The room was silent as the impact of his words sank in. Finally, Evelyn stammered, "Are you sure about this, Tony? You're the CEO. People will recognize you." "We'll need a disguise," Tony said, his voice resolute. "A good one. I'll be out of sight during the day and won't use the main office entrance. If I want honest answers, no one can know it's me." Connor and Evelyn exchanged a glance, then nodded, reluctantly convinced. Over the next week, Tony worked with a makeup artist to create a new identity. Tommy Daniels was born, a grizzled, slightly down-on-his-luck cleaner with graying hair, an unkempt beard, and glasses thick enough to obscure his features. He practiced adopting a slower, warier gait and speaking with a slight London accent to mask his own voice. The night before his first day on the job, Tony sat at his kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a mug of tea. His wife, Laura, looked at him with an expression that mingled worry and admiration. "This is a huge risk, Tony," she said softly, But I know why you're doing it, and I'm proud of you. Just be careful." Tony gave her a reassuring smile. "I will, and thank you for understanding. I need to do this, not just for me, but for everyone at Skytech." The next morning, Tommy Daniels arrived at Skytech's headquarters, a building Tony knew every inch of from his years in the company. But this time, he entered through the employee entrance, slipping in among the cleaners and maintenance workers who were starting their shifts. The usual greetings he was accustomed to hearing, "Mr. Carson, sir," were replaced with casual nods or indifferent glances. After checking in with security and collecting his cleaning supplies, Tony was directed to the lower floors to begin his shift. He felt a wave of both nervousness and excitement. For the first time in his career, he would be experiencing his company in a completely new light. His supervisor for the week was Gloria Hill, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with a thick London accent and a sense of humor that masked years of hard work. As she handed him a mop and bucket, she sized him up with an appraising eye. "You must be Tommy," she said, arms folded. "You ever done janitorial work before?" Tony shook his head. "No, ma'am, but I'm a quick learner." Gloria smirked. "We'll see about that. Just remember, stay out of people's way. And if you're on the executive floor, don't linger. They don't like distractions." Tony nodded, feeling a pang of guilt. How many times had he unknowingly ignored people like Gloria in his own building? Gloria took him on a quick tour of his responsibilities, cleaning the cafeteria, wiping down desks in the open office areas, and maintaining the executive floor. Tony paid close attention, taking mental notes on everything around him. That first night, Tony was assigned to clean the cafeteria. As he wiped down tables and swept the floor, he began to overhear snippets of conversations from the employees who stayed late. Many of them were mid-level managers or entry-level staff working extra hours, and their conversations painted a picture he hadn't anticipated. "I haven't seen my kids in 2 days," one woman sighed to her colleague, "but I can't afford to leave a minute earlier, not with my workload." Another young man complained, "They say they want us to innovate, but every time I bring up a new idea, it's like they don't even listen. Management only cares about their pet projects." Tony's stomach twisted as he realized these weren't isolated grievances. They were reflections of a work culture that had slipped away from his vision. He had prided himself on Skytech being a place of collaboration and opportunity, yet he was hearing something altogether different. In the cafeteria that evening, a few employees cast quick, uninterested glances his way, but for the most part, Tony was invisible, a fixture in the background, like the tables and chairs he was cleaning. It was a stark and humbling experience. Later that night, as he moved through the hallways toward the executive floor, he noticed a young woman working at her desk. Her nameplate read, "Emily Cartwright, Junior Analyst." She was typing furiously, papers and charts spread around her. Tony started to walk by, but he caught a glimpse of exhaustion on her face and couldn't help himself. "Long night, eh?" he asked, trying to keep his voice gruff. Emily looked up, surprised to see a cleaner speaking to her. "Oh, yeah," she replied, managing a tired smile. "It's budget season, so everyone's running around like mad." Tony nodded. "Not too many breaks, I take it?" Emily shook her head, her smile fading. "Not really. It's just, well, there's always something. And if you don't stay on top of it, you fall behind." She looked away, almost embarrassed. "Honestly, sometimes I wonder if anyone even notices the work I put in." Tony felt a pang of sadness for the young analyst. How had he, Tony Carson, the CEO of this company, failed to see the impact of the pressure he unknowingly placed on his team? "I'm sure it doesn't go unnoticed," he said softly, but Emily only gave a faint, doubtful smile before turning back to her screen. The following day, Tony was tasked with cleaning the conference rooms, where he happened to overhear a conversation between two of his senior executives, Amanda Foster and Tom Rivers. They were discussing the upcoming quarter's targets. "We need to hit these numbers, no matter what," Tom said, his tone sharp. "And if that means squeezing the team, so be it." Amanda frowned slightly. "You know they're already stretched thin, right? We can't just keep pushing without something breaking." "Look, Amanda," Tom replied, his voice dismissive. "If they can't handle it, maybe we need different people. The board expects results." Tony clenched his mop handle, anger simmering in his chest. How many times had he unwittingly fostered this kind of approach in his leadership meetings, emphasizing targets without considering the cost to his employees? Later that evening, Tony returned to the basement locker room, taking off his Tommy disguise in front of the mirror, his mind heavy with the insights he had gained. In only a few days, he had glimpsed the reality his employees faced every day, a reality he had been blind to. As he left the building, he knew his journey had only just begun. The next day, Tony arrived early at the headquarters, once again dressed as Tommy Daniels, the weary-eyed night cleaner. This time, he was prepared to explore the parts of the company that operated more independently from his immediate oversight. After all, the disconnect he'd felt between his employees and leadership wasn't just an issue with the executive team, it was something embedded deeply in the company's culture. Tony started his shift with a task he hadn't tackled yet: cleaning the lobby. The large, gleaming reception area was one of SkyTech's most meticulously maintained spaces, a point of pride that spoke to the company's reputation. He'd barely started when he overheard two employees chatting by the coffee machine nearby. "Did you hear about the new project in marketing?" one of them said, a young man with an easygoing air. "I heard they're giving it to David's team again. He always gets the best projects." His companion, a young woman with short hair and an intense gaze, rolled her eyes. "Yeah, well, David's practically friends with half the management team. Doesn't matter what anyone else does, he's always going to come out on top." Tony felt a twinge of discomfort as he listened. David was one of SkyTech's rising stars, a manager known for bringing in fresh clients and big deals. But Tony couldn't deny that David's connections in upper management had likely influenced his rapid promotions and steady stream of high-profile projects. The two employees' conversation drifted away, but Tony remained deep in thought. How many other talented employees had been sidelined because they weren't part of the in-crowd? How had favoritism seeped into SkyTech's decision-making without him realizing it? As he continued his work in the lobby, a familiar face walked by. One of the senior security guards, Keith, whom Tony had seen countless times but never really spoken to. Today he decided to change that. "Hey, mate," Tony called, affecting the gruff tone he'd practiced. "Long hours, huh?" Keith looked over, surprised that the new cleaner was striking up a conversation, but he gave a friendly nod. "Yep, long enough to feel like home. I've been here so long I might as well be part of the walls." Tony smiled, but he could sense there was more to Keith's comment. "You've been here a while then?" Keith chuckled. 14 years to be exact. I was here back when SkyTech was just a few floors in the old building across town. Seen it grow into the giant it is today." Tony nodded thoughtfully. "You must have seen a lot of changes over the years." Keith's smile faded a little. "Yeah, some for the better, some for the worse." He hesitated, glancing around to ensure they were alone before lowering his voice. "Look, I don't know you, but this place isn't what it used to be. Used to feel like a family here. Now it's more like a machine." Tony's heart sank. Keith's words hit closer to home than he cared to admit. SkyTech had once been his pride and joy, a company built on values of innovation and camaraderie. But as it had grown, had he allowed it to become impersonal, too focused on efficiency and profits over people? "I get it," Tony replied, choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes things change so fast you don't realize what you've lost until it's too late." Keith gave a slow nod, a look of understanding passing between them. With a quick pat on Tony's shoulder, he said, "Well, hang in there, mate. You seem like a good one. Just watch your back. Not everyone here's as friendly as they seem." The comment lingered in Tony's mind as he moved on to his next task, the open office spaces. He'd noticed during his shifts that these areas were divided into distinct sections with certain teams occupying specific zones. Today, he'd be working in the customer service area, a part of the company he'd rarely visited. As Tony swept around the cubicles, he listened to the customer service representatives handle various calls. One employee, Claire, stood out. She was calm and patient as she talked to a frustrated client, guiding them through a technical issue with a level of care that was becoming rare in the fast-paced tech world. Once her call ended, Tony approached her, pretending to sweep around her desk. "You've got a knack for that," he commented, trying to sound casual. As he was wiping down desks, he noticed a group of younger engineers gathered around a computer, excitedly discussing a project. One of them, a young man named Ravi, seemed particularly enthusiastic, explaining an innovative feature he'd come up with. "That's brilliant, Ravi," one of his colleagues said, clearly impressed. "Have you shown this to anyone higher up?" Ravi's enthusiasm waned slightly. "No point, really. They always seem to dismiss ideas from us juniors. They're more interested in the projects that come from the golden teams upstairs." Tony's heart sank. He knew Ravi's work. His ideas had come up in passing at executive meetings, praised by managers without ever crediting the engineer behind them. How many others like Ravi were innovating in the shadows, their contributions going unnoticed? "Keep working on it," Tony said, hoping to offer a little encouragement. "Sometimes good ideas just need the right moment to shine." Ravi nodded, offering a small smile. "Thanks. I hope you're right." By the time Tony left the building that night, his mind was buzzing with revelations and concerns. The favoritism, the burnout, the disregard for employee well-being, it was all woven into the fabric of the company in ways he had never imagined. He'd gone into this undercover mission hoping to uncover a few minor issues, but he was beginning to realize that the problems at Skytech ran much deeper than he'd anticipated. The following morning, Tony sat at his kitchen table, replaying the events of the previous night in his mind. He was beginning to understand that changing the company's culture would be no easy feat. It would require a complete overhaul, not just in policies and practices, but in attitudes and values. When he arrived for his shift that night, Tony noticed a commotion near the break room. A cleaner, an elderly man named Arthur, was struggling to move a heavy garbage bin. Most of the employees passing by ignored him, but a young woman from the finance team stopped to help despite her professional attire. "Thank you, miss," Arthur said, his voice filled with gratitude. The young woman smiled. "It's no trouble. You've been working here long?" Arthur nodded. "Since the beginning, actually. Been cleaning these halls longer than most people here have been alive." Tony listened intently, moved by the older man's dedication and the kindness of the young woman who had stopped to help. This was the spirit Skytech needed more of, a culture where people helped one another, regardless of their titles or positions. As the night went on, Tony became even more aware of the quiet strength and dedication of employees like Arthur, Claire, and Ravi, who put their hearts into their work despite feeling overlooked and undervalued. By the end of his shift, Tony had made a decision. He couldn't simply stand by and watch as his employees suffered under a toxic culture he had unknowingly allowed to grow. It was time to confront these issues head-on, to bring his findings back to the executive team and spark the change Skytech desperately needed. He could only hope that, when the time came, his employees would believe in his commitment to change as much as he now believed in them. The next evening, Tony felt a renewed sense of purpose as he arrived at Skytech. He was determined to continue learning about his company's inner workings and the people who made it function. His interactions with employees like Claire, Ravi, and Arthur had opened his eyes to the gaps between leadership and the workforce, and he knew there was still much more to uncover. Tony's first stop that night was the HR department. He wanted to observe the processes that shaped Skytech's culture. The HR offices were on the quieter side of the building, a place employees tended to visit only when necessary. As he approached, he saw several desks piled high with paperwork, and at one of them sat Mia, a mid-level HR representative who appeared stressed as she scanned her computer screen. Tony approached her desk with his mop and bucket, pretending to focus on cleaning the area nearby. Mia didn't notice him at first, engrossed in her work, so he decided to break the silence. "Long night, huh?" he asked in his gruff, Tommy voice. Mia looked up, blinking in surprise. "Yeah, you could say that. End of quarter reviews, employee complaints, new hires, it's all piling up." She sighed and glanced around the room as if checking to see if anyone else was listening. "Honestly, though, the most exhausting part isn't even the workload. It's the constant push to make numbers look good, no matter the reality." Tony raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Well," Mia leaned in, lowering her voice. "Sometimes we're told to downplay certain issues. If an employee reports feeling burnt out, we might suggest they look into work-life balance options like using their vacation days. But when they bring up toxic management practices or favoritism, those complaints rarely get documented officially. It's like there's an unspoken rule to keep the complaints vague so they don't tarnish our positive workplace image. This revelation hit Tony hard. As CEO, he had implemented various programs to improve workplace satisfaction, thinking these measures would make a difference. But it seemed that these initiatives were being buried beneath a facade of positivity, and real issues were not being addressed. "What happens to those complaints then?" he asked, keeping his tone casual. "They're usually resolved on paper, with a note that the employee was advised on company policies. But honestly, nothing really changes. If someone brings up a serious concern about a manager or asks for an investigation, it's rare that it goes anywhere. The leadership doesn't want to disrupt things." Mia's words revealed just how deeply the issues at Skytech ran. He felt a pang of guilt realizing that he might have unintentionally contributed to this culture by emphasizing performance metrics over genuine employee well-being. As Tony moved on, he couldn't shake Mia's words from his mind. He decided to head to the research and development R&D floor next. R&D was the heart of innovation at Skytech, a place where cutting-edge projects were born. But as he soon discovered, it was also a place where frustrations brewed, especially among those who felt that their contributions went unnoticed. Tony saw a group of engineers huddled around a workstation. One of them, a tall man named Alex, seemed to be leading a discussion, his face filled with frustration. "It doesn't make sense," Alex said, throwing his hands up. "We've been working on this project for months, and suddenly it's being handed off to the new team in Boston. They weren't even part of the initial development." One of his colleagues, a woman named Lila, sighed. "It's all politics. The Boston team has more connections in upper management, so they're seen as the star team right now. Our work doesn't matter if we're not in the spotlight." Tony felt a deep sense of unease as he listened. R&D was supposed to be a place where every idea had a chance, where innovation could flourish without being stifled by internal politics. Yet here were talented engineers pouring their time and energy into projects, only to see their work taken from them because of favoritism. "It's not fair," another engineer chimed in. "We do all the groundwork, and then when it's time for presentations or recognition, they bring in the other team. No one ever sees what we're actually doing." Tony waited until the group dispersed, then approached Alex as he was packing up his things. "Tough night?" Alex glanced over, slightly startled. "Oh, hey, yeah, you could say that. Just another day of working in the shadows, I guess." "Why not just speak up about it?" Tony asked, curious to understand the engineer's perspective on management. Alex chuckled bitterly. "Speak up? About what? That our work is being overshadowed by office politics? Management doesn't want to hear it. They just see it as whining." The more Tony listened, the clearer it became that Skytech had fostered a culture where employees felt powerless to address genuine concerns. He realized that a system that only rewarded those with connections had made many talented individuals feel invisible, pushing them to either blend in or risk being labeled as disruptive. After leaving R&D, Tony's final stop for the night was the production floor. The production team handled much of the physical testing and quality control for Skytech's products. He'd spent little time in this part of the company during his tenure as CEO, as it was far removed from the corporate offices where strategy decisions were made. As Tony walked the floor, he spotted a young technician, Carla, who was meticulously testing a batch of circuit boards. She seemed deeply focused, her attention unwavering as she monitored each board's readings on her tablet. Intrigued, Tony approached her. "You've got a good eye for detail," he commented, hoping to start a conversation. Carla looked up, her face lighting up at the unexpected compliment. "Thanks. Quality control is tricky, but I love it. I always try to make sure everything is perfect before it goes out." "Does anyone ever thank you for all that effort?" he asked. Carla shrugged, a hint of sadness crossing her face. "Not really. Most of the recognition goes to the engineers and developers who design the products. I mean, they deserve credit too, but sometimes it feels like we're just background players, even though we're the last line of defense before products go to market." Tony nodded, trying to process the full scope of what he was learning. Across every department, From customer service to production, people felt unseen, undervalued, and disconnected from the larger mission of SkyTech. He had once believed his company to be a beacon of opportunity and growth, a place where talent and hard work would always be rewarded. But now he could see that the very culture he'd set out to create had become distorted, clouded by the pursuit of success and expansion. As Tony finished his rounds that night, he felt a surge of determination. This undercover journey was revealing things that the numbers and reports on his CEO desk never could. He was witnessing his employees' struggles and joys, seeing firsthand how much they cared about their work, even if they felt the company didn't care about them. The next day, he sat in his study, thinking deeply about everything he had learned. He realized that before he could begin making changes, he needed to understand why these problems had taken root in the first place. Had SkyTech's rapid growth allowed toxic behaviors to go unchecked? Had his own priorities shifted too far towards profits at the expense of people? One thing was certain: his employees deserved better. And as much as it pained him to admit it, Tony recognized that he bore a great deal of responsibility for the culture that had evolved at SkyTech. The change had to start with him. When he arrived for his shift that night, Tony resolved to dig even deeper. He wanted to uncover more stories, to fully understand the scope of the issues his employees were facing. That night, he returned to the HR department, where he noticed a new face, Laura, a recent hire who was handling employee grievances and conflicts. Laura looked up, offering him a polite smile as he began cleaning the area around her desk. "Busy night?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Laura laughed softly. "Always is. But I'm still learning the ropes, so I guess I'm still in that new job excitement phase." "Good thing, then," Tony replied. "Doesn't sound like it's an easy job." "Oh, it's not," she admitted, her expression turning serious. "Especially when you see how many complaints come through about favoritism and burnout. It's hard, because on paper, SkyTech has all these great policies about work-life balance, inclusivity, and growth opportunities. But when you look closer, well, let's just say the reality doesn't always match up." Tony could sense Laura's frustration, and it echoed everything he'd heard from Mia and the other employees. The company's glossy image and real workplace experiences were worlds apart. "Why do you think that is?" he pressed, hoping for more insight. Laura hesitated, then leaned in, her voice a whisper. "Honestly, I think it's because people in leadership are too focused on profits and pleasing investors. They've forgotten about the people who make it all happen." Tony felt the weight of her words. SkyTech's leadership, including himself, had perhaps become too focused on keeping up with the demands of shareholders and market growth, allowing the well-being of employees to slip through the cracks. By the time his shift ended, Tony was determined to confront the hard truths he'd uncovered and make the necessary changes. As he left the building that night, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, but he also knew that transforming SkyTech's culture would be no small feat. Each story, every encounter, had shown him that his company was a complex tapestry of ambition, hard work, and hidden struggles. To rebuild it, he would need to start by fostering a culture of empathy and inclusivity, where every employee felt valued and heard. Tony's journey was just beginning, and he knew it wouldn't be easy. But he was willing to go the distance for the people who had dedicated their lives to SkyTech, just as he had. The following day, Tony felt more resolved than ever as he slipped back into his janitor's uniform, ready to continue his mission. He realized that his employees were sharing more than just day-to-day frustrations. They were revealing their hopes, fears, and aspirations for a workplace that valued them as people rather than as mere resources. These insights felt precious, and he knew they would form the foundation of the cultural overhaul he envisioned for SkyTech. Tonight, Tony decided to focus on understanding the perspectives of entry-level employees, those who often felt the full weight of SkyTech's pressures yet had the least power to voice their concerns. His first stop was the customer service department, which was housed on the lower floors of the building. This was the team responsible for handling the influx of customer inquiries, complaints, and feedback, a high-pressure job that required patience, empathy, and resilience. As Tony entered the customer service area, he was struck by the atmosphere. It was different from the upper floors, less polished and bright. The desks were packed closely together, and the lighting was harsh, casting a sterile glow over the tired faces of the agents hunched over their screens. He watched as they fielded calls, their voices calm and courteous despite the often frustrated tones on the other end of the line. He found a spot near a young woman named Erica, who seemed particularly engaged with her work, handling each call with patience and understanding. Tony noticed that her desk was covered in sticky notes, reminders, and motivational quotes. He took a slow breath and approached her during a brief break between calls. "Hey, looks like you're handling a lot there," he said, keeping his voice in the steady, humble tone he'd adopted as Tommy. Erica looked up, smiling despite her obvious fatigue. "It's a busy day, like every day, but I love helping people solve their issues. Makes me feel like I'm doing something useful." "Doesn't sound easy," Tony replied, genuinely impressed. "It's not, but I've always been good at connecting with people. I get customers calling in who are angry or upset, and I try to see things from their perspective. It's a good feeling when you can turn someone's bad experience into a positive one," she explained, a hint of pride in her voice. Tony nodded, marveling at Erica's dedication. He was beginning to see that employees like her were the true face of SkyTech, embodying its values in ways he hadn't fully appreciated from his office on the top floor. "Do you feel like management sees that effort?" Tony asked, genuinely curious. Erica paused, her expression turning somber. "Not really. They push us to hit targets, take as many calls as possible, reduce handling time. It feels like a numbers game to them. They don't understand that we're talking to people who need help, not just filling quotas." Tony frowned, feeling a growing sense of guilt. He'd always seen customer service metrics on spreadsheets, with calls handled per hour and satisfaction scores neatly summarized. But hearing it from Erica's perspective gave those numbers a human face and reminded him that quality couldn't always be measured by quantity alone. "I guess it can be hard for them to see it from your perspective," he said carefully. "Yeah," Erica replied, sighing. "Sometimes I think they don't even know what we do down here. They just see customer service as this big expense. But if they really listen to what we hear on these calls, they'd understand our customers better, and maybe us too." As Erica returned to her calls, Tony moved on, deeply troubled by her words. He was beginning to see that a culture change would require a shift in how SkyTech valued its people, especially those in essential roles like customer service, whose contributions were often undervalued and unseen. His next stop was the logistics team. This department was responsible for managing the intricate web of supply chains and product distribution. Tony knew this team worked tirelessly to ensure that SkyTech's products reached customers on time, yet he'd rarely interacted with them directly. In the logistics room, he found a man named Jacob, who was hunched over a laptop, staring intently at a map of delivery routes. Boxes and documents were stacked high around him, a testament to the workload he was juggling. "Another long night?" Tony asked as he started sweeping near Jacob's desk. Jacob glanced up, giving him a weary smile. "Yeah, seems like every night lately. We're short-staffed, so I'm covering a couple of roles right now, but I guess that's the new normal." "Sounds like a lot for one person to handle." Tony said. "It is," Jacob replied with a shrug. "But you do what you have to, right? I mean, the team's stretched thin, but we've got deadlines. Customers are counting on us." Tony was struck by Jacob's dedication. Even though he was overwhelmed, he had a clear sense of purpose and commitment to his job. But as they continued to talk, it became evident that this dedication came at a personal cost. "I used to be able to see my family for dinner every night," Jacob admitted, his voice tinged with sadness. "Now I'm lucky if I make it home before they go to bed." Tony felt a pang of regret. The relentless drive for growth and efficiency had placed a heavy burden on employees like Jacob, who were sacrificing their personal lives for the company's success. He made a mental note to look into the staffing levels in logistics, recognizing that a single person should not bear the weight of such a critical, demanding role alone. As the night wore on, Tony decided to make his way back to the cafeteria for a coffee break. He found a quiet corner and sat down, reflecting on everything he had learned so far. Each conversation he had uncovered layers of SkyTech's culture that he hadn't seen before. revealing a company that was, in many ways, at odds with the values he had once envisioned for it. Just then, a young man sat down at a nearby table, a look of exhaustion etched on his face. Recognizing him as James, a junior programmer he'd seen in passing before, Tony struck up a conversation. "Late night?" Tony asked, glancing at the weary programmer.
James nodded, running a hand through his messy hair. Yeah, another one. Working on a tight deadline for a project in R&D. Sounds intense. How do you handle it? Tony asked. Coffee, mostly, James said with a laugh. And well, just trying to keep up. This place moves fast, and if you're not careful, it'll burn you out before you even know it. There was a pause as James looked at his coffee, his face falling slightly. I actually wanted to bring this up in the last team meeting, but I didn't want to seem like I was complaining. There's just this unspoken expectation here that you have to give up everything else for the job if you want to get anywhere. Tony felt the familiar sting of regret. He had intended for Skytech to be a place of opportunity and growth, but he was beginning to realize that it had also become a place of sacrifice, one where personal lives were often compromised in pursuit of success. James continued, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the work. It's challenging, and I've learned a lot. But there's this pressure to perform at all costs, and it's starting to feel like no matter how hard I work, it's never enough. Tony nodded, deeply understanding the frustration James was expressing. He'd seen similar dynamics in every department he'd visited so far. Employees were passionate and dedicated, but they were also being pushed to their limits, left feeling undervalued and overextended. That night, Tony couldn't shake the conversations he'd had. Each one reinforced the idea that Skytech needed more than just surface-level changes. It needed a genuine transformation. The culture he'd helped create was causing harm, stifling talent, and creating a workplace that was taking more from people than it was giving back. The following day, as he prepared for another night as Tommy the janitor, Tony resolved to take a bold step. He would gather Skytech's management team and share his findings. But first, he wanted to have one final conversation with someone he had come to deeply respect during his undercover journey. Arthur, the night shift security guard. As Tony arrived at Skytech that evening, he made his way to Arthur's desk. The security guard looked up, his eyes brightening as he recognized Tony. Tommy, good to see you, Arthur greeted him warmly. Good to see you too, Arthur, Tony replied, genuinely pleased. Over the past few nights, Arthur had become something of a mentor, offering wisdom and insight with each conversation they had shared. Arthur, I wanted to thank you. Talking with you has helped me see things differently, Tony began, feeling a surge of gratitude. Arthur gave him a curious look. Is that so? You're welcome, Tommy, but what brought that on? Tony paused, choosing his words carefully. I came here to learn about what makes Skytech tick, to understand what's working and what isn't. And well, I've learned that things aren't as perfect as I once thought. Arthur nodded knowingly. It's easy to lose sight of things from up top. That's why it's important to come down here and see things from a different angle every once in a while. This company is made up of people, not just projects and profits. Tony felt a swell of determination. Arthur's words confirmed what he had suspected all along. The heart of Skytech lay not in its balance sheets or its innovations, but in the people who dedicated themselves to its mission every day. Arthur, Tony said, I think I know what I need to do. I need to start making things right, but I also know that I can't do it alone. Arthur looked at him, a spark of approval in his eyes. Then don't do it alone, Tommy. Gather the people who believe in what this place can be and build it together. The changes you want won't happen overnight, but if you're willing to do the work, you'll see the difference. With a renewed sense of purpose, Tony thanked Arthur and made his way to the janitor's closet to change out of his disguise. He was ready to re-emerge as Tony Lawson, the CEO, and to lead Skytech with a vision rooted not in profit, but in people. As he shed his janitor's uniform, Tony felt lighter, as if the weight of his discoveries had transformed from a burden into a purpose. He knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years, he felt genuinely excited. Skytech's story was about to change, and he was ready to write the next chapter. Tony Lawson, now back in his formal CEO attire, walked into the executive boardroom the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose. His heart was still pounding from the past week's discoveries, but he was resolute in his mission to transform Skytech's culture from the ground up. He understood that creating genuine change would require difficult conversations, and he was ready to initiate those, starting with his own leadership team. As the executives took their seats, Tony could sense an air of anticipation. This wasn't a typical board meeting. Jessica from HR, Michael from operations, Susan from finance, and several other key department heads had gathered around the large oval table, exchanging puzzled glances. They weren't accustomed to Tony calling for last-minute meetings without providing an agenda in advance. Once everyone settled, Tony began with an unexpected statement. Over the past week, I've spent my nights working undercover as a janitor in this company. The silence that followed was deafening. Shock and disbelief registered on each executive's face, and whispers quickly broke out across the room. Yes, you heard me right, Tony continued. I decided to work as a janitor, interacting with employees on every level. I wanted to experience Skytech from the perspective of the people who keep it running day in and day out. Jessica's eyes widened, clearly stunned. Tony, I don't understand. Why would you do that? Tony gave her a steady look. Because I wanted to see Skytech for what it truly is, not just the numbers or the polished presentations we usually see in this room. I wanted to understand the culture we've created and the environment our people work in every day. Michael shifted in his chair, looking uncomfortable. And what did you find? Tony took a deep breath, letting his gaze move around the room, pausing on each of his executives in turn. I found dedication, passion, and resilience in our employees. They're working harder than ever, often sacrificing their personal lives for the sake of this company. But I also found that many of them feel invisible, undervalued, and overworked. The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. The executives exchanged uncomfortable glances, clearly unsettled by Tony's findings. They had heard about the engagement challenges before, but had always assumed they were minor. This revelation forced them to confront the stark reality of the company's culture. During my time as a janitor, I heard employees express feelings of disillusionment. Tony continued. Some of them believe that success here is based more on connections and office politics than on merit or hard work. They're concerned about favoritism, a lack of recognition, and in some cases, outright disrespect. Jessica looked stricken, as if Tony's words were an indictment of her work in HR. But we conduct regular employee surveys, we organize engagement activities. We've always tried to address these concerns. Tony nodded, acknowledging her efforts. I know, Jessica. I know you and everyone in this room has worked hard, but surveys and events can only do so much. There's a deeper issue here, a disconnect between our stated values and our actual practices. We're not living up to the promises we make to our employees. The room fell silent again, and Tony let the weight of his words settle. Then he continued, his tone softening. Look, I know this isn't easy to hear, but I believe that if we're willing to confront these truths, we can rebuild Skytech into the company we all envisioned when we started, a place where people feel valued, respected, and genuinely excited to come to work. Jessica raised a hand, seeking permission to speak. Tony, if we're going to make these changes, we'll need a concrete plan. People are going to be skeptical, especially if they've been let down in the past. Agreed, Tony replied. That's why I've outlined some initial steps that I'd like us to take immediately. But I want each of you to add your thoughts as well. This can't be my plan alone, it has to be ours. He handed out a set of documents, each containing a detailed proposal for an organizational transformation that he drafted the previous night. The proposals outlined 5 key initiatives designed to rebuild trust and reshape Skytech's culture. The first initiative was transparent communication. Tony explained that every employee should have a clear understanding of how decisions are made and how their feedback influences those decisions. This meant regular company-wide meetings, as well as smaller team gatherings where employees could discuss issues openly with their managers. The second initiative was inclusive leadership training. Tony was adamant that each manager, including himself, undergo training on empathy, inclusivity, and ethical decision-making. I want our leaders to understand that their actions have a direct impact on our employees' morale and well being, he explained. We need to foster a culture where everyone, regardless of their role, feels respected. The third initiative was fair performance evaluation and promotion policies. This was a particularly sensitive issue, as many employees had expressed concerns about favoritism and a lack of transparency in promotions. Tony proposed an overhaul of the current evaluation system, ensuring that promotions were based on merit, not connections or popularity. The fourth initiative was work life balance. Tony emphasized the need to address burnout, especially among junior employees and departments like logistics and customer service. This meant more flexible schedules, a reevaluation of workload expectations, and ensuring that everyone had the support they needed to succeed without sacrificing their personal lives. The fifth and final initiative was empowerment and recognition. Tony wanted to create a culture where employees felt empowered to bring new ideas to the table and where innovation was celebrated at all levels. This meant recognizing contributions across all roles, from the frontline workers to the executive suite. As the executives read through the proposals, Tony observed their reactions. Some looked energized, while others seemed wary, as if grappling with the enormity of the changes he was proposing. "This is a major shift," Susan said, her voice thoughtful. "Implementing these changes will require a lot of resources, time, and commitment." "I know," Tony replied, "but this is about more than resources. It's about creating an environment where people feel valued and supported. If we're going to retain our talent and foster a culture of loyalty, we need to make these investments." Michael, usually one of the more reserved executives, spoke up. "I think this is long overdue, Tony. We focus so much on growth and innovation that we've lost sight of the people making it all happen. I'm ready to support this, and I know my team will be too." Others began to nod in agreement, and Tony felt a surge of hope. There was still a long road ahead, but it was clear that his team understood the importance of the changes he was proposing. He had allies in this journey. As the meeting concluded, Tony felt a renewed sense of purpose. The executives dispersed, each tasked with presenting these initiatives to their teams and gathering feedback. Tony knew that the journey wouldn't be easy, but he was more determined than ever to turn his vision into a reality. Over the next few weeks, Tony threw himself into the work of implementing the initiatives. The company-wide meetings, or SkyTech forums, as they were soon called, became a regular event. At these meetings, employees shared their thoughts on the proposed changes, voicing their hopes and concerns. Tony listened intently, taking notes and answering questions honestly. One of the more impactful moments occurred during a forum with the customer service team. Erica, the employee Tony had met while undercover, raised her hand and asked a question that cut to the heart of the issue. "Mr. Lawson, I've been here long enough to see a lot of promises come and go. How do we know this isn't just another set of empty promises?" Tony felt the weight of her question. He took a deep breath and replied, "You don't have to take my word for it, Erica. The only way I can prove this is by following through, step by step, day by day. This is not a quick fix. It's a long-term commitment, and I'm holding myself accountable to make sure we see it through." Erica nodded thoughtfully, her skepticism softening, though she remained cautious. Tony couldn't blame her. Building trust would take time, and he was prepared for the challenge. The inclusive leadership training was another transformative step. The sessions covered everything from active listening to managing conflict with empathy. The exercises required each leader to reflect on their own biases and assumptions, fostering an environment of humility and openness. Tony attended every session, actively participating and setting an example for his team. The training was intense and emotionally taxing, but it was essential for creating a culture of respect and compassion. As the weeks turned into months, Tony began to see the impact of these initiatives firsthand. The atmosphere in the office gradually shifted, becoming more collaborative and supportive. Employees felt empowered to share their ideas, and managers were learning to lead with empathy and integrity. One of the most gratifying moments for Tony came when he walked past a break room and overheard a group of employees talking about a new project in customer service. Erica was leading the initiative, and her voice carried a newfound confidence as she explained her ideas to the team. Tony paused, listening with pride as his employees discussed innovative solutions to enhance the customer experience. He couldn't help but smile. This was the Skytech he had always dreamed of, a place where every voice mattered, where innovation was encouraged, and where employees felt proud to contribute. Tony continued his undercover efforts occasionally, even after his initial experiment. Every so often, he would slip back into his janitor's uniform and spend an evening observing different departments. These moments helped him stay grounded and connected to the reality of the workplace, reminding him of the importance of humility and empathy in leadership. One evening, as he was emptying the trash bins in the finance department, a familiar voice called out to him, "Charlie, is that you?" It was Arthur, the seasoned janitor who had become Tony's mentor during his undercover journey. Tony turned around, a grin spreading across his face. "Arthur, good to see you." Arthur looked him up and down, amusement glinting in his eyes. "So, back to your undercover antics, huh?" Tony chuckled. "Just making sure I stay connected to the people who make this place what it is." Arthur nodded approvingly. "Good on you, Tony. The best leaders never forget where they came from." As Tony Lawson stood with Arthur in the finance department that evening, he couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of pride in the work they'd accomplished over the past few months. It was a quiet pride, one that came not from accolades or record-breaking profits, but from the gradual, meaningful transformation he could feel unfolding within Skytech. However, he knew that the journey was far from complete. Building a healthy company culture was an ongoing process, one that demanded persistence, humility, and continual self-reflection. Over the next few days, Tony worked closely with his executive team to monitor the progress of the cultural initiatives they'd implemented. The effects of the new policies were starting to ripple through the organization. Team leaders reported fewer complaints related to favoritism and workplace dissatisfaction, and there was a noticeable increase in employee engagement. But Tony was fully aware that there were still deep-seated issues left to address, and one department in particular weighed heavily on his mind: product development. The product development team had been at the heart of Skytech's success, driving innovative ideas and delivering cutting-edge technology that propelled the company's rapid growth. But with that growth had come intense pressure. Over time, the department had developed a culture of competitiveness and perfectionism, one that discouraged collaboration and at times even bordered on toxic. Tony realized that if Skytech's transformation was to be genuine and lasting, he would need to turn his attention to this critical department. Determined to gain a first-hand understanding of the situation, Tony devised a plan to spend time with the product development team. This time he decided not to go undercover. Instead, he would join the team in a more transparent manner, working with them on a project under the guise of field experience to better understand their needs and challenges. The next day, Tony met with Anna Martinez, the head of product development. Anna was a brilliant engineer, known for her sharp mind and relentless dedication to her work. She was also one of the company's most influential leaders, someone whom the team admired but also feared, as she had a reputation for being incredibly demanding. "Anna, thank you for agreeing to let me shadow your team," Tony said as they walked through the bustling product development floor. "Of course, Tony," Anna replied, though her tone was cautious. "I'll admit, I was a bit surprised when I heard about your plan. We're not exactly used to having the CEO in our day-to-day meetings." Tony smiled, acknowledging her hesitation. "I understand, and I don't want to disrupt the workflow. I'm just here to observe and learn, to see how we can better support the team in meeting its goals." Anna nodded, though Tony could sense her unease. He understood her concerns. In high-pressure environments like product development, even a small disruption could impact the team's productivity. He promised himself that he would be as unobtrusive as possible, simply observing and engaging with the team as one of their own. That afternoon, Tony joined the product team in a brainstorming session for a new project. The atmosphere was intense, almost palpable with focus and tension. The team members were seated around a table, each clutching their laptops and notebooks as they pitched ideas and debated design features. Tony quickly noticed a recurring pattern. While the team was highly talented and full of innovative ideas, there was a reluctance to challenge Anna's opinions. Her presence seemed to create an invisible barrier, and Tony observed that only a few team members spoke up, often agreeing with her without further discussion. As the meeting progressed, Tony made an effort to engage with each team member, asking questions to draw out their perspectives. At one point, he turned to Carlos, a junior developer with a reputation for creative problem solving, who had been silent throughout the meeting. Carlos, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this feature. Do you think it could be refined in any way? Tony asked, his tone encouraging. Carlos glanced nervously at Anna before hesitatingly offering a suggestion. Well, I was thinking that instead of adding this extra functionality, we could simplify it. It might reduce the processing time and make the user interface cleaner. Anna's expression tightened, and Tony noticed the subtle shift in Carlos's posture as he glanced at her, waiting for her reaction. She seemed ready to dismiss his idea, but Tony quickly interjected, giving Carlos a nod of encouragement. That's a great point, Carlos, he said. Sometimes simplifying a feature can make a big difference in user experience. What do the rest of you think? The team members exchanged glances, seemingly surprised by Tony's interest in Carlos's perspective. Slowly, other voices joined the conversation, each adding their own insights and building on Carlos's idea. By the end of the meeting, the team had collaboratively developed a streamlined version of the feature that they were all excited about. After the meeting, Tony stayed behind to speak with Anna. Anna, I wanted to share an observation, he began carefully. You have an incredibly talented team, but I noticed that some of them seem hesitant to voice their ideas when they don't align with your vision. Anna's expression was a mixture of surprise and defensiveness. Tony, I'm just pushing them to reach their full potential. This industry is competitive, and we can't afford to fall behind. I understand that, and your drive has been a huge asset to SkyTech, Tony replied. But I wonder if there's a way to balance that drive with a bit more openness to differing ideas. Sometimes, a great idea can come from the quietest voice in the room. Anna nodded slowly, visibly processing his words. I'll think about it, Tony. I want what's best for the team, and if encouraging more open dialogue will help, I'm willing to try. The following day, Tony decided to dig deeper. He spent time speaking individually with various team members, encouraging them to share their honest thoughts and experiences. It became clear that while they respected Anna's expertise, they felt stifled by her high expectations and reluctance to consider alternative ideas. Many of them expressed feelings of burnout, citing the constant pressure to exceed expectations and the lack of recognition for their hard work. Later that week, Tony hosted a meeting with the product development team to discuss how they could improve the work environment. This time, Anna was also present, and Tony noticed a marked difference in her demeanor. She was more open, actively listening to her team's feedback without interrupting or challenging them. At one point, Tony turned to Anna and asked, "What do you think would make your job easier, Anna? Are there any changes you'd like to see in the way we approach our projects?" Anna took a moment before responding, her expression thoughtful. I think I've been so focused on delivering results that I forgot to listen to the team. I'd like to work on creating a space where everyone feels comfortable sharing their ideas, even if they're different from mine. The team members exchanged glances, clearly surprised by Anna's admission. It was a small moment, but Tony could see that it held significant meaning for the team. By acknowledging her own limitations, Anna was setting an example for the rest of the department. In the days that followed, Tony continued to support Anna as she worked to implement a more collaborative culture within the product development team. They held regular team building sessions where members were encouraged to share their thoughts and ideas freely. Slowly, Tony could see the walls of reservation breaking down. Carlos, the once silent junior developer, was now one of the most vocal contributors, sharing innovative ideas that helped to streamline several ongoing projects. As Tony walked through the product development floor one afternoon, he spotted Carlos engaged in an animated discussion with Anna about a new software prototype. The interaction was respectful but filled with a newfound sense of energy and enthusiasm that Tony hadn't seen before. He felt a swell of pride watching the positive transformation unfold before him. By encouraging open dialogue and valuing each individual's input, they were creating a team that was not only more collaborative, but also more resilient and innovative. While Tony's focus on product development had led to significant improvements, he knew that sustaining a positive culture across the company required continued effort. He began implementing monthly pulse check meetings with different departments, where he could hear directly from employees about their experiences, challenges, and suggestions for improvement. In one such meeting with the customer service team, Tony was reminded of Erica's question from his first forum. She had been cautious, almost skeptical, of the changes at that time, but now he could see a difference in her demeanor. She was engaged, enthusiastic, and had even started leading her own initiatives within the department. It was a testament to the progress they had made, not only in policy, but in fostering an environment where people like Erica could thrive and grow. Toward the end of the meeting, Tony asked the team, "How can we continue to support you? What do you need from us to keep succeeding?" Erica raised her hand, her expression earnest. "Honestly, Tony, I think we just need to know that our voices are heard, that what we say here actually matters and isn't forgotten as soon as we leave the room." Tony nodded, fully understanding the weight of her words. "Thank you, Erica. I promise that every suggestion, every idea, and every concern you share here is valuable to me and to our leadership team. We're committed to making SkyTech a place where everyone's voice matters." In the weeks that followed, Tony made it a point to reinforce this commitment. He set up a feedback portal where employees could anonymously submit their thoughts, and he personally reviewed the feedback with his executive team each month. It was a small but powerful gesture, one that showed his dedication to creating a lasting change in SkyTech's culture. One evening, as Tony was preparing to leave the office, he received an email notification. It was from Erica, thanking him for the changes he'd implemented and sharing how much they had impacted her daily work experience. She ended the message with a simple statement that resonated deeply with Tony. "Thank you for listening, Tony. It makes all the difference." As Tony closed his laptop, he felt a sense of fulfillment that went beyond his accomplishments as CEO. He realized that the most meaningful legacy he could leave was not in the profits or products SkyTech would create, but in the culture of respect, empathy, and collaboration that would shape the lives of his employees and their future. And that, he knew, was worth every challenge he had faced along the way. In the months that followed, SkyTech's transformation continued to unfold, creating a lasting impact on every department. Employees at all levels began to take ownership of their roles in building and maintaining the culture, fostering an environment of transparency and mutual respect. Tony Lawson's commitment to open communication, empathy, and empowerment was paying off, and he could feel the positive shift in the way his team interacted with one another. But as the company culture improved, new challenges began to surface. With the recent expansions into global markets, SkyTech's growth trajectory was accelerating at an unprecedented pace. The increased demand brought forth a unique set of hurdles, requiring the team to adapt quickly and innovate in ways they hadn't anticipated. The pressure was once again mounting, and Tony knew that the only way they could continue to thrive was by fostering a resilient, adaptable workforce. To address this, Tony decided to initiate a series of resilience-building workshops across the company. He believed that resilience wasn't just about bouncing back from setbacks, but also about developing the mental flexibility to thrive under pressure and navigate change with a sense of purpose. He wanted his employees to feel supported and empowered to tackle the challenges that lay ahead, both in their professional lives and beyond. The first workshop was held in SkyTech's main auditorium, and Tony decided to lead the session himself. He wanted to create a personal connection with his employees, to show them that he wasn't just a distant figure in a corner office, but a leader who was invested in their growth and well-being. As the employees filed into the auditorium, Tony observed the crowd, taking in the diversity of faces. There were veterans who had been with Skytech since its inception, and newer recruits who had joined only recently, drawn by the company's innovative reputation. Each of them represented a unique story, a different background, and a shared commitment to Skytech's mission. Once everyone was seated, Tony took a deep breath and stepped up to the podium. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice resonating with sincerity. "Over the past few months, I've had the privilege of hearing many of your stories, learning about your challenges, and witnessing your dedication. I know that Skytech's recent growth has brought about some incredible opportunities, but I also know it's brought a new level of pressure. That's why we're here today, to talk about resilience and how we can build it, not just as individuals, but as a team." He paused, allowing his words to settle before continuing. "Resilience isn't just about weathering a storm. It's about having the tools, the mindset, and the support to keep moving forward, no matter what obstacles come our way. It's about learning to thrive under pressure, to adapt, and to grow. And I want each of you to know that Skytech is committed to helping you develop that resilience." Over the next hour, Tony guided the group through various exercises designed to help them recognize their strengths and identify strategies for overcoming challenges. He encouraged open dialogue, inviting employees to share their experiences and the ways they had managed stress in the past. As the session progressed, Tony could see the initial hesitancy give way to a more open and trusting atmosphere. At one point, Tony turned to the crowd and asked, "How many of you have ever felt overwhelmed by the pace of change in this industry?" A sea of hands shot up, and Tony nodded, acknowledging the shared experience. "It's okay to feel that way," he said. "I want you to know that feeling overwhelmed doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." He shared a personal story about a time early in his career when he had felt completely overwhelmed, struggling to balance his professional responsibilities with his personal life. The story resonated with many in the audience, and Tony could sense the collective relief as they realized that even the CEO wasn't immune to the pressures they faced. As the session drew to a close, Tony introduced a new initiative called the Resilience Buddy System. Each employee would be paired with a colleague from a different department, creating an opportunity for cross-departmental support and camaraderie. The idea was simple yet powerful. Employees could check in with their buddies regularly, sharing updates on their goals, challenges, and progress. "This isn't just about work," Tony emphasized. "Your resilience buddy is someone you can lean on, someone who will remind you that you're not alone, no matter what you're facing. We're building a culture of support, and that starts with each of you." The response to the resilience workshops and the buddy system was overwhelmingly positive. Employees appreciated the opportunity to connect with colleagues they might not have otherwise interacted with, and many of them formed genuine friendships that extended beyond the office. The shared commitment to resilience fostered a sense of unity within the company, and Tony was thrilled to see how the initiative had brought people closer together. One afternoon, a few weeks after the launch of the Resilience program, Tony received an email from Clara, a project manager in the marketing department. Clara had initially been skeptical of the changes, but had gradually come around as she saw the positive effects on her team. In her message, she thanked Tony for the resilience workshops, sharing how the buddy system had helped her through a particularly challenging project. "Knowing I had someone to talk to, someone who understood the pressure and could offer a fresh perspective, made all the difference," Clara wrote. "It's not just about the work. It's about knowing there's someone who cares about you as a person. Thank you for bringing this to Skytech." Tony read the email with a smile, his conviction strengthened. These small steps were creating a lasting impact, one that would continue to shape Skytech's culture long after the workshops had ended. As the weeks passed, Tony began to see the Resilience Initiative bear fruit in unexpected ways. One of the most significant changes was the newfound willingness among employees to take calculated risks. They felt empowered to experiment and innovate, knowing they had a support system in place should things go wrong. This shift was especially evident in the product development team, which had once been reluctant to challenge established processes. During a product review meeting, Tony observed as Anna Martinez, the head of product development, presented a new prototype with a sense of excitement he hadn't seen in her before. The project, a collaboration between several departments, was the result of a brainstorming session that had encouraged out of the box thinking. The prototype wasn't perfect, and there were still plenty of details to work out, but Anna's enthusiasm was contagious, and the team rallied around her to refine the idea. After the meeting, Tony pulled Anna aside. "I've noticed a shift in the way your team operates. It seems like they're more open to trying new things, even if it means facing potential setbacks." Anna smiled, her expression one of quiet pride. "You're right, Tony. I think the resilience workshops helped us realize that it's okay to make mistakes, that we don't have to be perfect all the time. It's given us the freedom to take risks and learn from them instead of fearing failure." Tony nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment. That's exactly the mindset we want to foster at SkyTech. Innovation requires courage, and courage comes from knowing you have a team that supports you. As SkyTech continued to grow, the resilience culture became a cornerstone of the company's identity. The buddy system evolved into a mentorship program where experienced employees could share their insights with newer hires, helping them navigate the challenges of the tech industry. The monthly pulse check meetings also became a permanent fixture, allowing Tony and his executive team to stay connected to the heartbeat of the company and address any concerns before they became major issues. One day, as Tony was walking through the office, he spotted a familiar face in the break room. Carlos, the junior developer who had once been hesitant to speak up in meetings. Carlos was engaged in an animated conversation with a group of colleagues, his confidence evident in his body language. Tony couldn't help but feel a swell of pride as he watched the young developer share his ideas with such enthusiasm. "Carlos," Tony called, stepping into the break room. "How's it going?" Carlos grinned, clearly pleased to see the CEO taking an interest in him. "Great, Tony. I'm actually working on a new project that's really exciting. We're exploring some machine learning applications that could streamline a lot of our internal processes." Tony raised his eyebrows, impressed by Carlos's initiative. "That sounds fantastic. I'd love to hear more about it. Let's set up a time to discuss it in detail." Carlos nodded eagerly, clearly thrilled by the opportunity to share his work with Tony. As he walked away, Tony reflected on the transformation he had witnessed in Carlos, a reminder of the impact that a supportive, resilient culture could have on individuals. The resilience culture didn't just benefit SkyTech's internal operations, it also had a profound effect on the company's relationship with its clients. The customer service team, empowered by the support they received, began to approach client interactions with a renewed sense of empathy and patience. Instead of rushing to resolve issues, they took the time to listen to clients' concerns, providing solutions that went beyond the standard script. This approach earned SkyTech a reputation for exceptional customer service, and clients began to notice the difference. Feedback from clients highlighted the team's attentiveness, problem-solving skills, and willingness to go above and beyond to address their needs. As a result, SkyTech's client retention rates increased, and the company's reputation as a trusted industry leader solidified. One afternoon, Tony received a call from a longtime client who had been with SkyTech since its early days. The client praised the customer service team, expressing appreciation for the way they had handled a recent issue with a level of care and professionalism that was rare in the industry. "It's clear that something has changed at SkyTech," the client said. "Your team doesn't just treat us like a number, they genuinely care about helping us succeed. That's a rare quality, low score, and it's why we're sticking with you." Tony thanked the client, feeling a sense of pride that went beyond financial success. SkyTech's resilience culture was making a tangible impact on their clients' experience, creating relationships that were built on trust and mutual respect. This was the kind of success Tony had always envisioned for SkyTech, a success that went beyond profits and market share. As the months turned into years, the resilience culture at SkyTech continued to thrive. becoming a defining characteristic of the company. The legacy that Tony was building wasn't just about the products they developed or the markets they conquered, it was about the people who made it all possible. And he knew that as long as they remained committed to resilience, empathy, and support, Skytech would continue to be a company that employees, clients, and partners could believe in. And with that, Tony looked to the future with optimism, confident that Skytech was prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The next year marked a milestone for Skytech. With the resilience culture well established and actively shaping the day-to-day interactions within the company, the executive team felt ready to take on ambitious goals that extended beyond their original vision. Tony had been contemplating expansion into the renewable energy tech space, a challenging but rewarding pivot that aligned with Skytech's mission of making impactful, positive changes in the world. He saw this as the perfect opportunity for the company to leverage its newfound unity and resilience. To bring this vision to life, Tony introduced Project Green Horizon, a dedicated initiative for researching and developing tech solutions that could improve energy efficiency for both enterprises and consumers. The project called for interdisciplinary collaboration, bringing together talent from engineering, product design, marketing, and customer support. It was clear that the success of this endeavor would depend on everyone working together seamlessly, fueled by the resilient, supportive culture they had built. Tony assembled a cross-departmental team and appointed Anna Martinez as the project leader. Anna, with her background in product development and experience navigating diverse perspectives, was the ideal choice to spearhead such an ambitious venture. She was known for her adaptability, a trait that Tony felt was essential for the project's success. Under her leadership, Project Green Horizon quickly became the most talked-about initiative in Skytech's history, drawing interest from employees who wanted to contribute to its success and clients intrigued by Skytech's innovative direction. One of the biggest challenges the team faced was the need for rapid innovation under tight deadlines. Renewable energy technology was evolving quickly, and staying ahead of competitors required a blend of creativity, speed, and risk-taking. Tony and Anna organized regular brainstorming sessions, open to everyone in the company, where employees could share ideas without fear of judgment or criticism. They made it clear that no idea was too big or small, and encouraged employees to embrace out-of-the-box thinking. The brainstorming sessions soon became a source of inspiration and camaraderie. Employees from different departments who might not have interacted in their usual roles found themselves working together on ideas that would shape the future of Project Green Horizon. The shared sense of purpose brought people closer, further solidifying the resilience culture that Tony had worked so hard to create. One particularly memorable session occurred on a Wednesday afternoon when Carlos, the junior developer who had once been hesitant to share his ideas, proposed a novel concept, a software algorithm that could predict and optimize energy usage based on real-time data. Carlos explained how the algorithm could help users reduce their energy consumption by providing them with personalized recommendations, from adjusting thermostat settings to managing appliance usage during peak hours. As Carlos spoke, Tony watched with pride. The once timid developer was now confidently presenting a groundbreaking idea that had the potential to transform the way people approached energy efficiency. Carlos's proposal sparked a wave of enthusiasm in the room, with other team members chiming in to discuss its feasibility and potential impact. "Carlos, that's a brilliant idea," Anna said, her eyes alight with excitement. "If we can make this work, it could be a game changer in the industry." The team spent the rest of the session fleshing out Carlos's idea, with engineers, data scientists, and product designers offering insights from their respective fields. By the end of the day, they had a rough blueprint for the algorithm, and Carlos was tasked with leading a small team to develop a prototype. Watching Carlos thrive in this new role was a powerful reminder to Tony of the value of empowering employees to step into leadership positions, regardless of their title or tenure. The buddy system, resilience workshops, and mentorship programs had all contributed to creating an environment where individuals felt confident in their abilities and were willing to take risks. As the months went by, Project Green Horizon gained momentum, with each department contributing to its progress in meaningful ways. Marketing crafted a powerful campaign to communicate the project's mission to clients and stakeholders, emphasizing Skytech's commitment to innovation and environmental sustainability. The customer support team began training on the upcoming product, preparing themselves to assist clients with questions about the energy optimization software. The resilience culture at Skytech became a stabilizing force as the project evolved. Team members were encouraged to openly discuss challenges, setbacks, and failures, knowing that their colleagues and leaders would offer support rather than criticism. This approach proved invaluable when the team faced an unexpected obstacle during the testing phase of the algorithm. Early prototypes revealed issues with the algorithm's accuracy, and it became clear that they would need to rethink parts of the design. In the past, such a setback might have triggered finger pointing and blame, but the resilience culture allowed the team to approach the problem with a sense of unity and purpose. Rather than dwelling on the setback, they focused on finding solutions, working together to identify the root cause of the issue and brainstorm ways to address it. The experience brought the team even closer, strengthening their commitment to Project Green Horizon and each other. One evening, after a long day of troubleshooting, Anna gathered the team for an impromptu meeting. She could see the weariness in their eyes, but she also saw the determination that had kept them going. "I know this project has been tough," she began, her voice filled with empathy. "But I want you all to remember that every challenge we face is an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to improve. We're not just building a product, we're building something that can make a real difference in the world, and we're doing it together." Her words resonated deeply with the team, reminding them of the greater purpose behind their work. Renewed by Anna's encouragement, they returned to their tasks with a sense of motivation and optimism. The team's resilience paid off, and after weeks of refining the algorithm, they finally achieved the level of accuracy they had been aiming for. The breakthrough felt like a collective victory, and Tony made sure to recognize the team's hard work and perseverance in a company-wide announcement. In a celebratory event held at Skytech's headquarters, Tony presented the first functional prototype of the energy optimization software to the entire company. Employees gathered in the main atrium, cheering and applauding as the team members who had contributed to Project Green Horizon took the stage. It was a powerful moment of unity and accomplishment, a testament to the strength of the resilience culture that had become the backbone of Skytech. "Today, we're not just unveiling a new product," Tony said, addressing the crowd with a smile. "We're unveiling the future of Skytech, a future that's built on innovation, teamwork, and a shared commitment to making a positive impact on the world. This project wouldn't have been possible without each and every one of you. Thank you for your hard work, your resilience, and your belief in our mission." The success of Project Green Horizon marked a new chapter for Skytech, solidifying its reputation as a company that valued both innovation and employee well-being. Clients were impressed by the company's shift towards renewable energy tech, and new partnerships emerged with organizations that shared Skytech's vision for a sustainable future. As the product was introduced to the market, the response was overwhelmingly positive, with clients praising the software's potential to reduce energy consumption and promote sustainability. For Tony, the success of Project Green Horizon was a culmination of everything he had worked for: a thriving, supportive company culture, a team that was resilient and adaptable, and a product that had the potential to change lives. But he knew that Skytech's journey was far from over. The tech industry was constantly evolving, and new challenges would undoubtedly arise. With this in mind, Tony decided to make resilience training a permanent part of Skytech's onboarding process. He wanted every new employee to understand that resilience wasn't just a buzzword at Skytech. It was a way of life, a guiding principle that would empower them to overcome obstacles and achieve their full potential. In the years that followed, Skytech's resilience culture became legendary within the industry, inspiring other companies to adopt similar practices. Tony was often invited to speak at conferences and seminars, sharing the story of Skytech's transformation and the impact of resilience on employee well-being and innovation. He was proud of the legacy he had created, not just for the company, but for the industry as a whole. As Tony looked out over the company he had built, he felt a profound sense of gratitude for every person who had contributed to Skytech's journey. From the janitors to the executives, each individual had played a role in creating a company that was more than just a place of work. It was a community, a family bound by shared values and a common purpose. And as he continued to lead Skytech into the future, Tony knew that resilience would remain at the heart of everything they did. It was more than a strategy, it was a commitment to each other and to the world they were striving to improve. In the end, Skytech's story was a story of resilience, of people who dared to dream and who had the courage to pursue those dreams, no matter the challenges they faced. It was a story of a company that had come together in the face of adversity, emerging stronger, kinder, and more united than ever before. And as Tony Lawson reflected on everything they had achieved, he knew that Skytech's journey was only just beginning. In the months following the success of Project Green Horizon, Skytech's reputation continued to soar, garnering widespread recognition as a company that prioritized both technological innovation and an inclusive, resilient workplace culture. Word of their accomplishments reached far beyond the tech industry, drawing interest from media outlets, potential collaborators, and even university researchers who wanted to study the company's unique approach to leadership and employee development. Tony, while pleased with the recognition, was more focused on maintaining and evolving the culture he had worked so hard to establish. As Skytech expanded, new hires poured in, each undergoing a resilience training program that had now become a core part of the onboarding process. This training was designed to not only familiarize them with the company's goals, but to introduce them to the values that underpinned every decision, action, and relationship within Skytech. Tony wanted each employee, from entry-level positions to upper management, to feel invested in Skytech's mission and empowered to navigate challenges. One afternoon, while walking through Skytech's open office space, Tony noticed a new face. The young man, looking somewhat lost amidst the buzz of activity, held a notepad close to his chest and had a tentative, uncertain expression. Recognizing this look from his own early days, Tony approached him with a welcoming smile. "Hello there. You must be new," Tony said, extending a hand. "I'm Tony Lawson." The young man's eyes widened, and he shook Tony's hand, clearly surprised to meet the CEO. "Yes, sir. I'm Alex. Alex Carter. Just started a few days ago in software development." "Well, Alex, I hope your first week has been going smoothly," Tony said warmly. "If you ever need anything, feel free to reach out. We're all here to help each other." Alex nodded appreciatively, visibly relaxing. "Thank you, sir. I've been getting to know the resilience culture here. It's different from where I came from in the best way." Tony chuckled, understanding. "It takes some getting used to, but it makes a world of difference. I'm glad to have you on board, Alex." After saying goodbye, Tony continued his walk through the office, reflecting on how far the company had come. New faces like Alex's reminded him that each employee brought fresh perspectives and ideas to the company. To keep Skytech adaptable and forward-thinking, Tony was committed to integrating these diverse perspectives. It was in this spirit that he decided to host a quarterly innovation event, an open forum where employees from all levels and departments could present ideas, share insights, and discuss challenges openly. The first Innovation Assembly, as it came to be known, took place in Skytech's main auditorium. Tony welcomed everyone, reminding them of the values Skytech had cultivated and how they had directly contributed to the company's success. The event allowed employees to present projects they were passionate about, regardless of whether those projects aligned directly with their daily roles. This gave individuals like Alex and others a platform to showcase their creativity and commitment to Skytech's mission. Alex took the stage during the first assembly, a bundle of nerves and excitement, as he presented an idea for a mobile app that could sync with the company's energy-saving software from Project Green Horizon. The app would provide users with real time energy usage stats and suggestions on how to minimize their carbon footprint based on their daily routines. Imagine knowing exactly when to reduce energy usage to maximize efficiency, Alex explained, his voice gaining confidence. With this app, users could not only track their energy impact but make small, incremental adjustments that would add up to significant savings. We could empower users to be part of the environmental solution in a way that's intuitive and accessible. The crowd responded enthusiastically, with many nodding in agreement. Tony, watching from the front row, felt a swell of pride. Alex's idea was not only innovative but aligned perfectly with Skytech's goals. Tony stood to address the audience once Alex finished. "That was an incredible idea, Alex," Tony said, beaming. "This is exactly the kind of forward-thinking approach we want at Skytech. Let's form a team to make this happen." After the event, Tony approached Alex again, who was basking in the afterglow of the presentation's success. "You did fantastic, Alex," Tony said, giving him a congratulatory pat on the shoulder. "Let's work together to turn your idea into a reality." Skytech's resilience culture had fostered an environment where employees felt comfortable sharing innovative, bold ideas. With the energy-saving app project underway, Alex became one of its lead developers, his dedication and insight proving invaluable to the team. As the project progressed, he built connections with colleagues from various departments, each contributing their expertise to bring the app to life. A few weeks into the project, however, the development team hit a setback. A bug in the app's tracking feature was causing inconsistent energy readings, and fixing it required complex code restructuring that would delay the project's timeline. In a traditional setting, this might have led to frustration or even accusations, but Alex's team approached the problem with calm and collaboration. "We'll get through this," Alex assured his teammates during a late-night debugging session. "If we take it step by step, I know we can figure this out. Let's break down the problem, analyze what's causing the inconsistency, and go from there." The resilience culture Alex had witnessed and admired now guided his approach to leading the team. They spent the next several days troubleshooting the bug, taking breaks when necessary to avoid burnout, and supporting each other through moments of frustration. When they finally resolved the issue, the relief and satisfaction were palpable. Tony, who had been keeping an eye on the project, congratulated the team for their perseverance. "I'm proud of how you handled this challenge," he told them. "You faced the setback head on, and that's exactly what resilience is about." The app launched successfully, drawing praise from users who appreciated its ease of use and real-time feedback. It was more than just a functional tool. It was a testament to the culture Skytech had built. Users commented on how the app made them feel empowered to contribute to environmental sustainability, and the app quickly gained traction, with thousands of downloads within the first month. Following the success of the app, Tony received numerous invitations from industry conferences to speak about Skytech's approach to innovation and resilience. At a major tech summit in San Francisco, Tony addressed a packed auditorium, sharing the journey of transforming Skytech's culture and the impact it had on their success. "Building a company is about more than profits or products," Tony explained. "It's about creating a space where every employee feels valued, where challenges are seen as opportunities to grow, and where we all support each other to achieve shared goals." At Skytech, we believe that a resilient culture isn't just good for business, it's essential for it. The talk was met with resounding applause, and afterwards, Tony found himself fielding questions from CEOs, entrepreneurs, and HR managers who wanted to learn more about implementing similar practices in their own organizations. He spent hours discussing practical steps and the importance of commitment from leadership in fostering such a culture. The experience reinforced Tony's belief that the resilience culture at Skytech was unique and worth sharing with the world. As Tony continued to grow Skytech and promote its resilience culture, he faced a crossroads that would define the future of the company. Skytech had attracted the interest of a large tech conglomerate interested in acquiring the company. The offer was generous, enough to secure Tony's financial future and provide substantial rewards for his employees. However, he was concerned about how a merger might impact Skytech's culture. Would the resilience culture be compromised under new leadership? Would employees still feel the same sense of unity and purpose? Tony gathered his executive team, including Anna, Alex, and a few others, for a closed door meeting to discuss the offer. They weighed the pros and cons, considering how a merger could provide resources for further innovation, but also recognizing the potential risks. Anna was the first to voice her concern. Tony, we've built something special here, a culture that values people as much as profits. There's no guarantee that this company will prioritize the same values if they take over. Alex nodded in agreement. I wouldn't want to see what we've built here get lost. This culture, the freedom to innovate and grow, it's what makes Skytech feel like home. The discussion went on for hours, each person offering insights and expressing concerns. In the end, Tony made the decision that he knew aligned with his values and the company's mission. He decided to decline the acquisition offer, choosing instead to keep Skytech independent and focused on their vision of resilience-driven innovation. He announced his decision at an all-hands meeting, explaining his reasoning and reaffirming his commitment to the company's culture. Skytech is about more than just profit margins and market share, Tony told the crowd of employees. We're here because we believe in what we do and in each other. I've decided that our future lies in staying true to our values and to each other, not in selling out. The employees erupted in applause, a palpable sense of relief and pride filling the room. Tony felt a profound sense of validation, knowing that his choice to prioritize people over profits resonated with his team. It was a defining moment for Skytech, one that solidified their culture and mission in a way that no acquisition ever could. In the following months, Skytech's reputation continued to grow, with clients, partners, and even competitors taking notice of their unique approach. The company's culture became its greatest asset, attracting talented individuals who were drawn to a workplace that valued resilience, collaboration, and innovation. Skytech's story became a case study in business schools and a benchmark for other companies looking to build supportive, resilient environments. Tony was invited to speak at events around the world, and his message remained consistent. Building a resilient culture is not a quick fix. It's a commitment, a promise to your employees and to yourself to value people above all else. As he looked around at the thriving company he had built, Tony felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't anticipated when he first embarked on this journey. Skytech was no longer just a company, it was a family, a community that had come together to create something extraordinary. And as they prepared to take on new challenges, Tony knew that no matter what the future held, Skytech's resilience would continue to be the foundation of their success. Their journey was one of constant growth, of overcoming obstacles, and of supporting each other in ways that transcended the traditional boundaries of the workplace. This, Tony realized, was what he had always wanted Skytech to be, a place where people could not only do their best work, but also become their best selves. In the years that followed, Skytech continued to grow, solidifying its position not only as a leader in tech innovation, but as a model for workplace resilience and cultural integrity. The decision to remain independent allowed Skytech to expand thoughtfully and responsibly, aligning each step of its growth with the values Tony and his team had worked so hard to cultivate. Word of Skytech's unique approach to employee development and community building reached far and wide, drawing interest from top talents worldwide who sought more than just career advancement. They wanted to be part of a movement that valued growth, authenticity, and impact. Tony, still at the helm, saw himself less as a traditional CEO and more as a mentor, an architect of culture. Rather than focusing solely on numbers and profits, he remained invested in the well-being and growth of each employee. He wanted Skytech to be a place where people could achieve their best, not just because of their skills, but because they felt supported, valued, and encouraged to push beyond their limits. His approach was grounded in the belief that a company is ultimately only as strong as its people. And fostering resilience meant empowering every individual to reach their potential. As the company's growth accelerated, Skytech launched a new initiative called Horizons, a comprehensive development program for employees at all levels. Horizons was designed to offer more than just technical training or leadership seminars. It provided a holistic approach to personal and professional development, with modules on emotional intelligence, stress management, creative problem solving, and even mindfulness. Tony and his team recognized that to cultivate true resilience, employees needed to be equipped not just with skills, but with tools to manage the challenges of a rapidly evolving world. At the launch event for Horizons, Tony addressed the entire company. His voice carried with it the conviction and passion of someone who had witnessed firsthand the transformative power of resilience. When I first founded SkyTech, I had a vision of a company that didn't just push boundaries in technology, but also redefined what it meant to work together, Tony began, looking out over the audience. Over the years, we've grown, we've faced setbacks, and we've had successes that I couldn't have dreamed of. But through it all, the thing I'm most proud of isn't a product or a quarter's results. It's the culture we've built. A culture where people feel safe to take risks, where challenges are seen as opportunities, and where we grow together. The audience listened intently, many of them nodding in agreement. Tony continued, Horizons is an invitation to deepen that culture, to strengthen the resilience we've nurtured here, and to build on it. It's about equipping every one of you with the tools you need to thrive, both professionally and personally. Because when you grow, SkyTech grows. As the Horizons program unfolded, its impact quickly became apparent. Employees found themselves connecting in new ways, breaking down silos, and building a stronger, more interconnected team. They engaged in workshops on active listening and conflict resolution, role-playing scenarios where they had to navigate difficult conversations, and work together to find creative solutions. The program's focus on personal well-being, particularly the mindfulness sessions, gave employees space to pause, reflect, and recharge, cultivating a renewed sense of purpose and clarity that translated directly into their work. One notable success story that emerged from the Horizons program was Sarah Lynn, a mid-level product manager who had been with SkyTech for 3 years. Despite her impressive skills, Sarah had often struggled with self-doubt, which held her back from taking on leadership roles within her team. In the Horizons program, Sarah joined a small group on emotional intelligence, where she worked on understanding her strengths and weaknesses and developing confidence in her decision-making. In one session, she opened up about her fears of failure and how they had affected her career. I've always felt like I'm one misstep away from being found out as an imposter, she admitted, her voice wavering. Sometimes I hold back because I'm afraid of letting people down. Her peers, many of whom shared similar insecurities, responded with empathy and encouragement. Through guided exercises, Sarah learned techniques for managing her self-doubt and reframing her mindset, focusing on her growth rather than perfection. She gradually found the courage to speak up in meetings, propose new ideas, and advocate for her team's work. 6 months after completing the Horizons program, Sarah was promoted to senior product manager. At the announcement of her promotion, she felt a surge of gratitude for the support she had received from her team and from Tony, who had personally encouraged her throughout her journey. She felt more confident, resilient, and motivated than ever before, and she knew that her growth was a reflection of the culture SkyTech had built. Tony's commitment to resilience extended beyond the company's walls as well. In partnership with local universities, he established the SkyTech Fellowship, an annual scholarship for students pursuing careers in technology and social innovation. The fellowship aimed to empower young people with the resources and mentorship needed to drive positive change, mirroring the values SkyTech embodied. Each fellow received not only financial support, but also mentorship from SkyTech employees, many of whom volunteered to guide students in everything from project management to emotional resilience. The first group of fellows included a diverse mix of students from various backgrounds, each with their own dreams of making a difference. Among them was Jordan, a brilliant yet introverted computer science major who dreamed of creating accessible technology for people with disabilities. Though Jordan was often nervous in social settings, he found confidence through his mentorship sessions with Alex, now a seasoned lead at SkyTech. As they worked together, Alex encouraged Jordan to view challenges not as roadblocks, but as opportunities for growth. Over time, Jordan learned to trust his abilities and began collaborating with his peers on a prototype for a device that would allow visually impaired individuals to navigate complex environments more easily. At the fellowship's year end showcase, Jordan presented his prototype with a newfound confidence, capturing the attention of tech professionals and investors. Seeing the impact his work could have, he felt empowered to continue developing his idea. As he stood on the stage, receiving applause from the audience, he spotted Tony in the crowd, clapping with pride. Tony felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that the resilience-focused culture of Skytech had extended to impact young innovators like Jordan. Skytech's reputation for resilience-driven leadership caught the attention of the industry, and more companies began to adopt similar approaches, recognizing the benefits of a strong, supportive workplace culture. Tony often received invitations to speak at conferences and events where he shared insights on fostering resilience and innovation in organizations. He spoke candidly about Skytech's journey, the challenges they'd faced, the lessons learned, and the critical importance of staying true to core values. In one particularly memorable keynote, Tony shared a message that resonated deeply with the audience. Resilience isn't just about bouncing back from setbacks. It's about building the capacity to grow stronger in the face of adversity. It's about creating an environment where every individual feels empowered to contribute, to take risks, and to learn from each experience. That's what drives innovation, and that's what creates a truly great company. Following the talk, attendees approached Tony to express how his words had inspired them to think differently about leadership. CEOs, HR professionals, and young entrepreneurs alike were struck by the idea that a resilient workplace wasn't a luxury, but a necessity. Tony spent hours engaging in deep conversations with people who wanted to bring similar cultural transformations to their own companies. Back at Skytech, Tony continued to work closely with his team, always looking for ways to nurture and evolve their resilience culture. When the company decided to launch a new branch focusing on artificial intelligence for environmental applications, Tony made sure that the core principles of resilience and inclusivity guided every aspect of the project. He assigned a diverse team of employees to the project, ensuring that voices from different backgrounds and departments contributed to its direction. The team faced numerous obstacles as they developed AI-driven tools designed to optimize energy usage and reduce waste in urban environments. Tight deadlines, technical challenges, and high expectations created pressure, but the team relied on the resilience principles they had internalized to manage stress and stay focused. They embraced setbacks as learning opportunities, openly discussed their frustrations and fears, and celebrated each milestone together. The experience brought the team closer, and when they finally launched the product, it was met with acclaim for both its innovation and its positive environmental impact. Looking back on his journey, Tony reflected on how far Skytech had come. From a small startup with a handful of employees to a global leader in tech innovation and workplace culture, Skytech had exceeded even his wildest dreams. But Tony knew that their success was not defined by awards or market share. It was defined by the people who worked there and the culture they had created together. As Skytech moved forward, Tony remained committed to preserving and expanding that culture, knowing that resilience was a lifelong journey. The company continued to thrive, adapting to new challenges and growing stronger with each obstacle. Employees who had once been hesitant or unsure found their voices, took on leadership roles, and made meaningful contributions to the company and their communities. In the final months of Tony's leadership, he prepared to transition the company to the next generation of leaders, confident that the values and principles Skytech stood for would continue. He spent hours mentoring Alex, Anna, Sarah, and others, instilling in them the importance of empathy, resilience, and integrity in leadership. He knew they would carry forward the culture that had been the foundation of Skytech's success, guiding the company to new heights. On his last day as CEO, Tony addressed the company one final time, his heart full of gratitude and pride. Skytech is more than a company, he began, his voice filled with emotion. It's a community, a place where people come together to create something meaningful. I've had the privilege of watching so many of you grow, overcome challenges, and achieve incredible things. As I step down, I want you to remember this. Resilience isn't just something we talk about, it's who we are. It's the spirit that will carry SkyTech into the future. With a final round of applause echoing through the office, Tony left SkyTech, knowing that its legacy was in good hands. As he looked back one last time, he saw a company that had become a beacon of resilience and innovation, a place where people could not only do their best work, but become their best selves. And as he walked into the next chapter of his life, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing he had left a lasting impact on the lives of countless people and an enduring legacy at SkyTech.